I was kind of an anomaly in my school because I'm a white ginger kid. But for the most part, at least growing up in the initial parts of my life, I never really felt any different because I went to school in Dubai. And the school I went to in Dubai was like a Lebanese Christian school. And 99% of the people were transplants. So there's the Iranian community, there's the Lebanese, the Egyptians, blah, blah. So I never really felt that I was, out of place. But then as soon as, especially to mid to late 90s, when people were getting more politically charged, the situation in Israel and Palestine was getting more tense, and civil wars in Lebanon, is when I started noticing that there was a bit more of a stigma attached to at least non-Arab Muslims, which is what I was classed as. So, and this was separate to the Iranians, Muslims that they had, because that was a Sunni Shia thing. But for example, I'd never known that amongst Lebanese people, whenever they want to describe somebody as like a traveler or someone with no taste, they just say, oh, he's a Kurd. Being Kurdish is an ethnicity, it's not a religion. There's a bit of confusion of late, especially with Iraq, when it comes to, whenever they segment Iraq, it's Shias, Sunnis, and Kurds. But Kurds are an ethnicity, and it's split amongst 4 or 5 of the countries that are the more volatile countries in the world. So there's Turkey, Syria, Armenia, and the part that I come from, which is the Iraqi side. The part of Kurdistan I come from, you're one of 2 political parties. And as a family, we have always adhered to neither, which kind of is odd in our part of the world because you're either a Jalal Talabani guy or a Masoud Barzani guy. And those are the heads of the 2 political parties. And while I appreciate everything these 2 have done for the Kurdish cause, the corruption and nepotism that runs through both of these organizations is something that I can never support. So I will never say I'm one or the other. And then now that I'm living in the US, I never thought I'd find myself in such a quandary over which side, I should be on. And then I guess maybe I shouldn't be on any side. But I class myself as a socially left-leaning person. I'm all for gender equality, religious equality, sexual equality, women's rights, and people being pro-choice, etc. But especially within this last election campaign, I've noticed that there's a lot of things that I've been completely disheartened by the left's attitudes towards people they don't agree with. For example, World Hijab Day is nonsensical because it's oxymoronic to say that the hijab is a feminist symbol. For me, it's subjugation. And instantly, when having this argument, someone called me Islamophobic. And I explained, why am I Islamophobic? And they're like, well, you're a white person who's criticizing Islam. I was like, well, I'm not white. I mean, I look white, but these people knew my background. I was like, you know exactly my background. I was born and raised, I'm a Middle Eastern guy, born and raised in an Islamic environment. I've studied the religion, and I'm criticizing the religion. How can my criticism of that religion be, tarred with that brush? And they're like, well, it's hard to disconnect you as a white-looking person to you criticizing Islam. That's the only thing that we can associate. And I was like, this is why the people you're kind of pushing people who disagree with you towards the other end of the spectrum. There's no moderation involved. And at the same time, a couple of weeks ago, I was in the East Coast and I was surrounded by hardcore Trump supporters. And everyone who lives in their echo chambers comfortably talks about their political beliefs, and I think that's where me looking the way I am, I fit into both without them realizing that I'm not part of the audience that they usually say all these things to. And they also have this weird way of hijacking the ex-Muslim cause, because they see our criticism of Islam and our wish for Islamic reform as we hate Muslims, so we have something in common. But over here, especially when I try and open a discourse on Islam, for example, whenever a horrible tragedy happens, like France 2 years ago and Belgium last year, is I try and open something up on Facebook, and then people will automatically come out and say, this is offensive, this is not the time for this. Because for me, my fury, the thing that annoys me the most is after each one of these attacks is some person who has no affiliation to Islam will come out and say, this isn't the true Islam. And no set of words infuriates me more than that thing, because as soon as that happens, because it's getting to the point now where they're not even letting the Islamic world come out and say that. These people are saying it on behalf of them, so it completely, negates any kind of internal reflection. Maybe there's something wrong here. And every time this happens, I'll end up having these huge discussions with people that go on for way too long I was like, listen, just try and understand it from my perspective, someone who's lived through this, someone who studied Islamic education for 13 years, someone who was on the high end of tilawah, Quran reading in my school. I know what I'm talking about. And they just most of the time see me as some Uncle Tom and they kind of get annoyed at me because I am not as angry at the West as I should be, as they hope that I would be to fit their narrative. And that kind of blinds them into this black hole of arguments and there's the emotion you can't take the emotion away from that argument, and we end up pretty much going nowhere. And at the end, if anything, they think of me even less. As bad as maybe I come across as criticizing here, this is a haven. This is just incredible for me, like, to be able to say this type of stuff and not worry about ramifications. And even if there's, our arguments turn into like name calling, etc., that for me is perfectly fine. We don't get this back home.